You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Kinezic.
Welcome back to The Buzz, brought to you by the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. I am Fran Chismar.
And I'm Tom Kinezic, and today we're buzzing into episode 155. And
I have to be honest. Yeah. We've recorded so many episodes in the last 2 weeks, I don't even know where we're at.
I know. Yeah, it's we're jumping all over. We've already done 156, and it's only going to get more chaotic.
We're doing 2 guests next week?
2, yeah.
And then we're going...
Right now we have 2 booked. I'm trying to move one of them because they somehow our booking software booked them for the same day, different times, and we could do it in theory, but I don't know if we want to torture ourselves
for
that
a change. We go from nothing to 20, so it's and at the busiest time of the year, so it's just a little chaotic. Like we already have next week's episode recorded, in the and
we did it yesterday.
It's
the time matrix that we live in. And I bring it up on our next episode, but I'll bring it up again here. We have a ton of new listeners over the last month that there's been a significant uprise in the numbies. Listens are through the roof. So we want to thank everyone who's new here for listening to us, and go back and listen to some of those best of episodes, or just go back to the beginning of the catalog. It's a less polished product, but it's but there's still really valuable conversations that are in there. So when you run out of stuff, when you're caught up with the more modern stuff, it's good to go back and listen to some of those and then we're picking some out every once in a while to throw in like a best of episode, just some of the conversations we really like.
We've only done 2, but they've been really well received. So we'll probably do more in the future.
So but for those who are new, this basically our podcast is we are 2 how did I describe this yesterday? No nothings. I don't remember. No good nicks.
Imbeciles or something?
No, I didn't go that far. But and we're very self deprecating too.
Yes.
But we're 2 folks that are in the native plant industry. But I wouldn't say that we're experts in native plants by any means, and that's why my dad always had a saying. He's like, I like to connect myself with smart people because then people thought I was smart too. So that was our goal with this podcast is not to just make people think that we knew what we were talking about, but bring some of these higher level conversations that we're privy to through our perspective in the industry, and make them more widely available. And some of the stuff that we just think is downright cool, just get it out there, whether it's about native plants, habitat, the things that are kind of like aligned in that native plant sphere. That's our podcast quickly grew into that realm. So
we've had episodes on oceans and fish, and it's all encompassing with the environment.
One of the things we've tried doing a couple times is bringing in some outsider perspectives of we had an episode with Joe Somelli, who was formerly of Meat Eater, now has his own podcast called Cut and Retie, just to kind of bring in. He's a fisherman. He's in an aligned outdoor space. Should care a lot about native plants, to get his thoughts on native plants and native habitat and how it affects what he likes to do with fishing, even though he doesn't really have native plants. So he
had a great perspective,
stuff. And then tie in a whole bunch of popular authors and just popular speakers and people who just maybe are a little more under the radar, but are really cool when it comes to native plants and
doing great
stuff.
Work. Yeah, and we get to have these conversations all the time, and we're happy that we can have them in a way that it's palatable to the novice.
Mm-hmm.
But enjoyable to the expert.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and we're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. We learn a lot on these episodes, and it is definitely evidenced in our next episode too.
We were in kid mode.
Oh man, it was a lot of fun. But we like to start these buzz episodes with some of the follies we've had over the past couple of weeks, or some of the follow up we've gotten from past episodes, or things that we forgot to talk about. One of which is every once in a while we throw out just more random, unstructured contests out there. And one we did was called the Native Plant Anthem. And
not one submission yet.
Which we haven't got a submission. And that's probably our own doing.
And one of our listeners, Alyssa, did reach out saying, you didn't give anyone a time frame.
Yeah.
And you're working with creative people.
Creative people who, they need some structure because they often don't have it on their own.
Yes.
And,
so we should probably amend that. What kind of limit would you like to put on this
I
contest?
would say let's do it 2 Buzz episodes from today. So basically a month from today being the day this releases.
So for if you're unaware of the contest, on our Tom was playing with ChatGPT and had it write a native plant anthem. So we have the lyrics. We have posted them on our Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group. Is it a pinned?
It is a pinned, or it's a featured post.
It's a featured post. So we've provided the lyrics. This is where the creativity jumps in. We're looking for you to put music and sing this song, create this native plant anthem that we can use on our show, maybe outro music. Maybe, I don't know, in some way we're going to incorporate it. We're going to give you, what was the cool prize?
$100 worth of Native Plants Healthy Planet swag.
Yes, from our store.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is submit a song and we will pick a winner.
Yeah.
So once we get all the submissions, hopefully within this next month, I'm gonna let's set a date.
What I was looking at is 4 Buzz episodes, or the next 2 Buzz episodes from today would be May 26th. I'm going to extend it to May 31st.
Okay,
and
perfect.
then that gives us a week to kind of review things, and then so it would be the 3rd Buzz episode is when we're going to start getting down the nitty gritty and saying who did a good job.
Are we going to pick, or are we going to allow the listeners to pick?
Oh, we haven't refined that far yet.
No, like maybe we should hash this out.
What we've done in the past, we did with the drawings.
Yes.
We had a Saul drawing contest, and for new listeners, you have no idea who Saul is either. With the Saul drawing contest, we picked the top.
We
couple.
each picked.
No, we took them out there and put them out there, and then we picked the winners from what the top couple were.
I thought it was I picked one, you picked one, and the listeners picked one.
It's been a while. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. And then I don't remember where we went from there. Did we put it up for a vote at that point?
You don't. No. I think we just chose a winner.
We chose a winner.
Okay. So, but I think that's probably a good way to do it. Is let's get these submissions. We're gonna pick out our top. Whatever, the top few out of that, the ones that we think are the best or made us laugh or just were the craziest. There is no real style guide. You guys listen to us. You kind of know what we might be interested in too. Probably maybe even better than we are. So now, do what you think is going to make us happy.
Bonus points if the song is submitted by a band name that we have identified on the podcast.
Yeah. That's become one of my favorite things to pick out now is those random band names that you come across.
There's a good one in the upcoming. Yeah, there's a good one in the next one.
So we'll pick out the top couple.
Okay.
And then from there, we'll put it in the Facebook group. And then from there, we'll let people, they'll vote for their favorite. And from there, if we need to intervene and pick a winner, we will. But if not, then we'll put it in the hands of the people, and they'll pick their favorite. And I hope there's some lobbying that goes on, some politicking, maybe let's bring some more people into the network so we get more votes.
Bonus points if it's someone famous. We keep saying.
I would love to launch the next.
All these listeners, no one has brought us I know we've had famous people on the podcast, but not musician Hollywood famous.
Yeah. We know Mark Ruffalo's in he cares about the environment. Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
We were offered Little Dicky at one point.
It never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened.
I don't know. We have to knock on that door again. Which is actually a good segue into some of the other things I wanted to follow up on in talking about fame and popularity and all this stuff. I was recognized in public yesterday when I went out to lunch at our local Columbus General Store. Someone said that they watched my Instagram videos, Facebook videos, and really liked them.
That is awesome. That's very cool.
And she did a lot. Her name was Susan, and she did a lot with native plants in her yard.
Very nice.
And was buying a lot of stuff from Toad Shade, which was cool. In addition to that, we have our first blue check follower on Instagram.
Really?
And
I haven't looked.
Any guesses on who it might be?
Would I know the person? Would I be able to?
You might not.
All right.
Honestly, You may.
No, a blue check, though, you're just paying for verification.
No, not on Instagram.
Oh.
On Instagram, no.
You can now.
Maybe
it's
you can, but
meta verified.
No, this person, let me see how many followers they have, because
all right.
I'm pretty sure they have quite a few.
Okay.
Now there it is. 2 days ago, they started following us. Probably because I wrote them a message about they posted a video of some pawpaw trees, and I wrote, "Now you're speaking our language," and then they wrote back, and then I was too nervous to say anything back because I'm a big fan, and then they followed us.
Who would it be?
I'll put it. I'll give you a little hint, Fran.
Okay,
they're in the food/YouTube space.
Food YouTube.
And they have 811,000 followers on Instagram.
Food YouTube space. See, that's not a space I know.
It's someone I've talked about in the office quite a bit. And Lydia, who used to work here, was also a big fan of this person.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know their name. Like when you say, is it? I
think because she was also. Oh no, that was Kelsey, like the other guy.
No,
she liked binging with Babish, who I also watched, and he does not follow.
Who's the one that does all the sound effects with the videos when he's?
That you're on the right track now.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I don't know when you say the name, I'll know it, but I'll never think
his name. I hope people are like, oh, I know who this is, or I have no clue who these guys are talking about. Name is Brad Leone.
Yes,
he used to work for Bon Appetit and had a whole. I love those YouTube videos, and I really hated that they stopped. And then during the pandemic, and then a whole bunch of stuff went down with Bon Appetit, and but he's been making some of his own stuff now, which I watch all the time, and I laugh, and I hope he's listening to this. Yeah. That would be awesome. This would be
that would be very cool.
When this happened, I saw it end of the day on, I guess it was Tuesday, and I was just like, holy crap. Wow, this is awesome. This may be the biggest moment of my life. And my wife overheard that, and she's like, "You mean more than our wedding and more than our son's birth?"
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, how long can the list be? There could be 10 great moments in your life. It could include all of those things.
This is a person who they're a Jersey person. Well, they live in Connecticut now. Brad lives in Connecticut now, but he's originally from Jersey. I don't hold it against him that he calls it Taylor ham instead of pork roll.
I can forgive that. I still hold very dear to my heart, and I feel the same way. I think I've mentioned on here before, but when you look at Facebook friends, I'm Facebook friends with Patrick Carney from the Black Keys.
No one knows who that is.
Everyone knows who that is. Well, some people know who it is, but he actually friend requested me. I don't know why. He didn't know who I was. That was before all of this, but I'm afraid to comment. I'm almost afraid. I'm afraid if I comment on anything, and it's his personal account, it's not like a private account. I'm seeing baby pictures, wedding pictures. I'm afraid, once I comment, I'll be like, "Who's this? How this person?"
Watch him be a listener, and it's like,
if that's the case, then he has to come on. But it's that was well before this. I just kind of quietly keep that one in my back pocket. I don't want to rock the boat.
Well, now you've broadcasted to thousands of people. Maybe one of them knows Patrick, or maybe it's Patrick himself. And I don't.
Well, we had one mutual friend, and it's a friend of mine from high school that's in the music industry. And I actually texted her and went, "Which one of our idiot friends has a fake profile pretending to be Patrick Carney?" And I'm like, "I see you're friends with him," and she goes, "Oh, that idiot would be Patrick Carney. That's really him. Yeah, that's his real personal account." Yeah, so I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, cool.
So I understand that's one of the greatest moments of my life, but I'm not going to say that in the presence of my wife.
It was, but no, it was. In all honesty, it was flattering to see that because it's
that means a lot.
It's when you watch. It's someone you watch a lot of. It's cool to know that they at least checked out something you did,
and they get behind what you're doing enough to follow you. Some people like that don't just follow anyone. And they don't have a lot of people they follow.
That is something I found really fascinating, is how many people are getting into native plants that were in aligned things. Like cooking is an aligned thing in my mind, where because foraging is such a huge thing. So he's gotten into he's a professional chef, getting into foraging, getting into hunting, or he's been hunting, I should say. So all these aligned things, and now he's getting into native plants too, because it's all ties together in a sense. Yeah. I don't know how music ties in, other than that we're asking people to write us music. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So. But we would love your entry for the Native Plant Anthem. Get cracking.
So, May 31st. That's the deadline.
Listen.
We will allow creative freedom with the lyrics.
I know there's one musician in our listening family.
Yeah.
At least one.
Well, I know there's a listener who has a whole children's choir that could do that.
Challenge.
Yeah, it could be.
All right.
You could do. There's no limits on genre. It could be a rap. It could be.
Yeah, it could be
opera. It could be.
You just have to use the lyrics that were generated by ChatGPT.
Yeah, or a slight modification.
Yeah,
it's got to be. Based
you can add a "ooh baby baby" to it.
Yeah, or if you make a better rhyme out of something or better. Okay. You can amend the lyrics, but just it's not. Form. We're not asking you to make a completely brand new song because I think that would make it a lot harder for us to judge.
I agree.
The big reason.
I agree.
But all right, last thing, a follow up.
Yes,
got a lot of good feedback on our quasi-aligned Grow Read a Book from last week, which was what was it? Some We Love, Some We Hate, Some We Eat by Hal Herzog, and a lot of just good conversation revolving around that. There was one part afterwards that I realized I forgot to talk about.
And that was tricky. I just want to say those conversations, I don't know how you felt, but I always feel a little trepidatious. Because you don't know how they will be received. Because it is controversial, and there are people that have very strong opinions on both sides of that. Yeah. So,
and the reason I brought it up is because it's thought-provoking, especially while we're talking about native plants and habitats, but a lot of these things are... again, it's like aligned or quasi-aligned with that topic in a sense. But one of the big things I forgot is he has a whole chapter on, or at least a whole portion of the book that was on like animal cruelty or animal torture. And he was like, it brings up the common conceptions about that. And it's like, there's a correlation between kids who torture animals at a young age and becoming like serial killers or criminals and all that. And so there really isn't a lot of evidence to back that up realistically. And then somehow he polled a class on how many students had tortured animals, expecting there to be like a significant difference in male to female or some kind of pattern there, or maybe with grades or something like that. Turns out that correlation didn't really exist. It was like, I think 55% male or 60% male, 40% of females admitted that they did that. So it was a slight, but it wasn't like he was expecting the female population to be like at almost zero. And then he started polling his colleagues, like other professors at this college. And he was like, what was really interesting is almost every single one of them had a story about a time they tortured an animal. And every single one of them it was a regrettable memory that was burned into their brain. Yeah. And like stories about they found a stray puppy and were playing loving it, but playing catch with it in a sense. And it was like throwing it over a fence and it was hitting the fence. And then clearly the puppy didn't make it. But it's like at the time they're young kids. They didn't realize what they're doing. They think they're having fun and playing with the dog in a loving way, but it really wasn't a loving way. And that is, but as one of our, a Native Plant Everyday episodes, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, I found a tick crawling on my arm. Typically what I would do is either put it in the toilet, which I guess is still torturous in a way, or put it in tape, which is somewhat torturous in a way. But instead, because I didn't have those things handy and we're in the middle of recording an episode, I took it and I put it under my pen and then put the pen on it to kill it. And I was like, man, why did I do that in a sense? I don't like ticks, and a lot of people don't like ticks, and a lot of people are doing the same things I'm doing.
And I think it goes back to the whole conversation of the book is why is it certain things is that okay? Yeah. Like, I think the one thing when you brought this conversation up outside of the podcast and you mentioned that to me, the first thing I thought of as a kid, and it's something that I think about a lot, and it wasn't just me, it was everyone. Like, as a kid, lightning bugs were so abundant. Yeah. I remember we would all get at night, not like every night all the time, but like you'd get a wiffle ball bat and you'd swing, and if you hit a lightning bug, like they would just light up and fly. Like, and young kid, probably like 6 years old, 7 years old. Yeah. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, what were we what were we thinking? What were we doing? No one ever said, hey, that's wrong. Don't do that. Not making excuses, but just that's one of those things I think about all the time going, wow, what were we thinking? Like there was no thought,
Yeah, and there's more experiences that I have where it's like some similar to that, some that are more similar to other stories that are in the book, and I'm like, but it was tended to be in a place where I'm in my youth, and then either my parents said, "Hey, that's not something you should do," and it was taught not to. But it's memories that are really like stuck in. Like another one, I remember being over my friend's house, and there was pill bugs walking across their like back walkway, and we're using a magnifying glass to burn them. Like today, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
No, but when I was a kid did that with ants. Like you'd see it on a cartoon and go, oh, I want to try that. I want to see if I can make an ant catch on fire.
Yeah. So that was just an interesting part, and I forgot to bring it up in the last. I had a bullet point in it, but I skipped over it to talk about something else, and I never came back. But the other thing that someone had brought up in the Facebook, and I forgot to respond to them on Facebook about this, they go into more depth about the whole cattle industry. And then aligning with that, there's an Instagram page called Sustainable Dish that I follow that has, I don't agree with everything they say, but they have a lot of, in fact, I reached out to, she's a nutritionist. Okay. And I reached out to this person to recommend someone we could have on the podcast to talk about the concept of regenerative agriculture and how these food systems, animal food systems, can combine with native plants. Because there's a lot of push into that. I think when you look at the conventional meat system in the U.S. with the food lots or the big chicken farms and all that, I think we can look at that and say, okay, there's a reason we're doing it, but is it the best for the animal? Probably not. Is it best for the environment? I would think definitely not. But when you look at like grass-fed or regenerative ag, or even a lot of these before the steers get to the food lot, they're on the land and they're feeding on natural forage in a lot of places. And what the water that they're consuming, in a sense, is primarily from natural rainfall, whether it's consumed through actual drinking or through the plants. And that's what Sustainable Dish, I can't remember her name. One of her main points is that that water gets factored into how much water it takes to raise a cow versus raise some plants. But it's like it wasn't like it was supplemental water. Yeah. This was water that hit the ground and grew in the plants. Like it was going to happen regardless. So why are we counting that as something that is necessary to raise a cow when it was something that was going to happen anyway? It's not like we brought in a water truck and put the water there for them specifically. Yeah. So yeah, the book goes into more depth, and there's a lot more. And something, again, we talk about native plants and then aligning things that touch on native plants or maybe glance around native plants, just because they're of interest to us and we think will be interest to more people. So yeah, so that was it was just and actually when we get to a question and comment line, there was actually a call in about that. So we'll revisit it a little bit more. How about we kick into? We always start off. I know at one point in the history, we tried to reorder the segments, and neither of us liked it. So the first segment we always kick into is the plants that we're vibing with. So let's jump right into That's Hot.
That's hot.
Would you like to go first?
I can go first, Fran.
Why don't you? Because I just see
a link,
and I'm curious and I'm looking at the link, and I'm like, I want to know more about this.
Yeah. So my plant is a plant we've talked about numerous times. Very common in the native plant sphere. It's one of the gateway plants in a sense where people plant it and then find out later it's a native plant. Yes. They don't necessarily plant it just because it's a native plant. That plant is Eastern Redbud, which is Cercis canadensis. And again, we've covered it a lot, so I don't really need to tell you that much about Cercis canadensis other than it's beautiful. It's blooming right now. It's got these like reddish buds that turn into pinkish, almost sometimes purplish, sometimes more red blooms. And then it has heart-shaped leaves, which are really cool as well. But I saw something online. My wife actually showed it to me. I think it was on TikTok, about Redbud jelly.
That's something I've never heard about. I gotta
try this. Apparently it's an Appalachian thing. And then when I Googled Redbud jelly, I found a whole bunch of different recipes on it. And I said, well, I'm going to choose the one from Real Tree Camo because that's just a different source that you wouldn't think would care about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's like other different like farm to table type websites or food blogs on there. I'm like, I'm choosing Real Tree.
All right.
Just to showcase that. So to make Redbud jelly, and this is better. This information is better served for the folks that are further north of New Jersey, because south of New Jersey, they're going to be out of bloom. Ours are just coming down. I'm going to try and take care of it. There's a tree I have that blooms a little late. I'm going to try and pick them this weekend. But basically, how to make Redbud jelly is you're going to need about 4 cups of Redbud tea. How do you make Redbud tea? You basically take the Redbud blooms and put them in hot water, and it steeps out. Okay. You got to steep them for like 12 to 24 hours. From what I read as well.
All right.
From there, you're adding a whole bunch of sugar, pectin, lemon juice. It says butter? What's the butter for? Hold on.
I don't know, but everything's better with butter.
Yeah. So, and then basically you're making jelly like you would other jellies from there, like if you're making grape jelly or other jellies. So, doing a little home canning, but it's something I'm going to try this weekend, and I figured I'd talk about. I always love different uses for native plants, especially when they're culinary uses. Something I'm going to try. Redbuds I've always known to have like a pea type taste to them. So I'm really interested in how this will taste. I don't know how pea jelly would taste. It doesn't sound the most appetizing, but you put a little lemon juice, a little sugar, I can't see it being bad.
The face I just made probably describes how I feel it would taste.
Yeah. So
awesome.
I'm going to make it. I'll try and make a little video about it, or a little not write up. I'll share my experiences making it at the very least. Very cool. Just want to share that because I want to tell now before I did it, because I want other people to have the opportunity to do it, not have to wait 2 weeks, and then it might be too late.
All right. So are you going to share? Are you going to bring it in here?
Oh, yeah.
We do it during the podcast?
Yeah.
Maybe we can even film it and put the video out so you can see if it tastes bad. Are you going to try it before you going to taste it before you bring it in?
Probably. Okay. I'll probably taste as I go.
All right. Okay.
So.
All right. Very cool.
I can't see it being bad. I think it's going to be good. It's just how good is it going to be?
That's a good choice for a good reason. It's funny. I love sometimes the reasons why we pick That's Hot. So last week you did yellow trout lily because you had done a prescribed burn on Foggy Bottom Farms for quail habitat, and all the yellow trout lily came up heavier than normal. So I went back to look at it and intermingle. First of all, there were so many wonderful things back there. There were spring beauties, big groups of that, May apple and Jack in the Pulpit, all these great ephemerals. But along with it were white wood anemone, which is Anemone quinquifolia. I should have sang that.
Yeah. You still can.
No.
Anemone quinquifolia.
Sarah will appreciate that. Yeah. You'll learn more about that next episode. So I noticed it while over at Foggy Bottom Farm doing it. So and that's if you want to hear more about the yellow trout lily, Tom did that on the Last Buzz, episode 153. But about Anemone quinquifolia from wildflower.org. It's a low, delicate plant with a whorl of 3 stalked, deeply cut leaves and a solitary stalked white flower. Slender stalk has basal leaves and a whorl of 3 to 5 parted leaves at its apex. A single white or pink flower arises above the leaf whorl. Solitary divided leaves also arise from the rootstock, and it does disappear after blooming. It is an early spring wildflower, which often forms sizable stands on woodland borders. Since anemones are usually slender-stalked and tremble in the breeze, they have been called windflowers. They enjoy part shade to shade, moist, damp, rich, mucky soils, forms ground cover colonies. All parts are poisonous when fresh. It is facultative upland, and you can find it from Maine to Georgia, west to Oklahoma, and north to Nebraska. I'm kind of excited. This weekend, I'll be visiting Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve, and it should be in the middle of their ephemeral glory there, and I'm looking forward to seeing the yellow poppy and the Virginia bluebell. I'm hoping to see some of these there. I'm hoping the weather holds out because they're calling for rain, so I'm really hoping that I get a chance to walk around without an umbrella.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you never know. But two great choices. If you don't know either of these, look at that. We're going to put this link in the show notes so that you can try to make Redbud jam yourself or Redbud jelly, and you and Tom can compare notes. Or if you don't know either of these, look up a little bit more and try to add them to your property if it's appropriate for where you're located.
Do you ever think anyone, when you say two great choices, because you say that every show,
their native plants are always two great choices.
French choice was a bunch of
crap.
did
poison ivy, and I'm trying to think what else, and cattails. Two great choices. Add them to your property. So, what do you think? You want to do some this or that?
Yeah.
You want to explain to our new listeners what this or that is?
So yeah, this or that is I mentioned Joe Cermelli earlier. It was a complete rip-off of his old podcast where he and his co-host would take articles from their podcast was fishing based, so the fishing world, and then they would present them, and their producer would choose a winner. So we're not in the fishing world; we're in the native plant world. So we adopted it and did it about native plants. And since we don't have a producer, we just kind of let you guys decide.
We let the listeners decide.
Yeah,
so
which one. And it's not necessarily which article is better, because sometimes we'll disagree with the article. Yes. So it's really whose presentation was better.
Yeah. So it's a popularity contest. So basically, it's basically this week's botany-based current events. And of course, it has to be a competition. So let's get into this or that. Or that's hot again. All right, let's try that again.
Plans.
Or this or that. That should serve as an intro to our new listeners with my ineptitude at the soundboard.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. It's funny that we've done this. How long have we had the soundboard? Probably close to like 70 episodes.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and still haven't gotten it down. You can have a little guide on there.
Well, you know what? I will say this. To add the Tom's Petty drop, I had to redo it all.
Yeah.
So I pushed a button that it would typically be.
Yeah. That it would typically would have been 3 months ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so last buzz, we had two great articles, but we had two short articles, probably shortest this or that of all time.
Mine was very picture driven, which is a bold choice for a podcast.
Yeah. So your article is about the California super bloom. Mine was kind of a follow up on Hawaii's native plant rebound, and we have a winner, and the winner is me. I won 12-5, which I'm kind of shocked at. But
yeah,
I think yours was picture-driven. Mine did follow up because I had done articles before about the loss of biodiversity in native plants. So I don't know if that resonated. But
yeah, well, Fran, do you choose to go first or second this time?
I am going to go first, and as a punishment,
my article it very long again.
It's 3 pages. I mean, the last long one was like 5 pages. So.
And I will say in here, just for everyone listening, that when we have our little word script in front of us, and I'll take the article, and no matter what it is, I try and trim it down to a page. And I'll cut down, I'll cut out stuff and say, this isn't important. And sometimes it burns me because I'm like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. I cut out some important key things there. So this one's mine today is like a little.
You got it like a
paragraph over a page.
Yeah. Mine's 3 pages.
So.
Well, let me see. Mine's not quite, like 2.5 pages. So I'll read quickly. Mine is called Bees Face Many Challenges and Climate Change is Ratcheting Up the Pressure. This was on theconversation.com by Jenny Durant. The extreme weather that has battered much of the U.S. in 2022 doesn't just affect humans. Heat waves, wildfires, droughts, and storms also threaten many wild species, including some that already face other stresses. I've been researching bee health for over 10 years with a focus on honeybees. In 2021, I began hearing for the first time from beekeepers about how extreme drought and rainfall were affecting bee colony health. Drought conditions in the western U.S. in 2021 dried up bee forage and the floral nectar and pollen that bees need to produce honey and stay healthy. And extreme rain in the Northeast limited the hours that bees could fly for forage. In both cases, managed colonies, hives that humans keep for honey production or commercial pollination were starving. Beekeepers had to feed their bees more supplements of sugar, water, and pollen than they usually would to keep their colonies alive. Some beekeepers who had been in the business for decades shared that they lost 50% to 70% of their colonies over the winter of 21 to 22. These weather conditions likely also affected wild and native bees. And unlike managed colonies, these important species did not receive supplements to buffer them through harsh conditions. Each year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Environmental Protection Agency host federal pollinator experts to share the latest scientific findings on bee and pollinator health and assess the status of these important insects, birds, bats, and other species. One clear takeaway from this year's meeting was that climate change has become a new and formidable stressor for bees, potentially amplifying previously known issues in ways that scientists can't yet predict but need to prepare for. Pollinators contribute an estimated $235 billion to $577 billion yearly to global agriculture based on the value of the crops they pollinate. Understanding and mitigating the impact of climate change on pollinators, I just had to look. I'm like, I did restart this, right? I was looking at
yes, you did.
We paused the recording for a second, and I doubted that. Understanding and mitigating the impacts of climate change on pollinators is key for supporting healthy ecosystems and sustainable agriculture. Bee health first attracted widespread attention in 2006 with the emergence of colony collapse disorder, a phenomenon where the majority of the adult worker bees in a colony disappeared, leaving their honey in pollen stores and some nurse bees behind to care for the queen and remaining immature bees. In the past 5 years, reported cases have declined substantially. Now researchers are focusing on what beekeepers call the 4 Ps: parasites, pathogens, pesticides, and poor nutrition, as well as habitat loss for wild and native bees. One of the most severe threats to honeybees over the past several decades has been Varroa destructor, a crab-like parasitic mite that feeds on honeybees' fat body tissue. The fat body is a nutrient-dense organ that functions much like the liver in mammals. It helps bees maintain a strong immune system, metabolize pesticides, and survive through the winter. These are vital functions, so controlling mite infestations is essential for bee health. Varroa can also transmit deadly pathogens to honeybees, such as the deformed wing virus. Controlling mite populations is challenging. It requires using an insecticide in an insect colony, or as beekeepers say, trying to kill a bug on a bug. It's hard to find a formula strong enough to kill mites without harming the bees. Monitoring Varroa takes significant skill and labor, and mites can build up resistance to treatments over time. Researchers and beekeepers are working hard to breed Varroa-resistant bees, but mites continue to plague the industry. Pesticides also harm bees, particularly products that cause sublethal or chronic bee health issues. Sublethal pesticide exposures can make bees less able to gather forage, grow healthy larvae, and fight off viruses and mites. However, it can be hard to document and understand sublethal toxicity. Many factors affect how bees react to agrochemicals, including whether they are exposed as larvae or as adult bees, the mixture of chemicals bees are exposed to, the weather at the time of the application, and how healthy a bee colony is pre-exposure. Researchers are also working to understand how soil pesticides affect ground nesting wild bees, which represent over 70% of the U.S. native bee population. Like many other species, bees are losing the habitat and food source that they depend on, this happening for many reasons. For example, uncultivated lands are being converted to farmland or developed worldwide. Large-scale agriculture focuses on mass production of a few commodity crops, which reduces the amount of nesting habitat and forage available for bees. And many farmers often remove pollinator-friendly plants and shrubs that grow around farmland to reduce the risk of attracting animals such as deer and rodents, which could spread pathogens that cause foodborne illness. Research suggests that these efforts have harmed beneficial insects and don't increase food safety. As diverse and healthy bee forage disappears, beekeepers feed their bees more supplements such as sugar water and pollen substitutes, which are not as nutritious as the nectar and pollen bees get from flowers. Researchers don't know exactly how climate change will affect bee health, but they suspect it will add to existing stress. For example, if pest pressures mount for farmers, bees will be exposed to more pesticides. Extreme rainfall can disrupt bees' foraging patterns. Wildfires and floods may destroy bee habitat and food sources. Drought may also reduce available forage and discourage land managers from planting new areas for bees as water becomes less readily available. Climate change could also increase the spread of Varroa and other pathogens. Warmer fall and winter temperatures extend the period when bees forage. Varroa travel on foraging bees, so longer foraging provides a larger time window for mites and the viruses they carry to spread among colonies. Higher mite populations on bee colonies heading into the winter will likely cripple colony health and increase winter loss. Studies have already shown that climate change is disrupting seasonal connections between bees and flowers. As spring arrives earlier in the year, flowers bloom earlier in different regions, but bees may not be present to feed on them. Even if flowers bloom at their usual times and locations, they may produce less nutritious pollen and nectar under extreme weather conditions. Research that analyzes the nutritional profiles of bee forage plants and how they change under different climate scenarios will help land managers plant climate-resilient plants for different regions. There are many ways to support bees and pollinators. Planting pollinator gardens with regional plants that bloom throughout the year can provide much-needed forage. Ground nesting native bees need patches of exposed and undisturbed soil, free of mulch or other ground cover. Gardeners can clear some ground in a sunny, well-drained area to create dedicated space for bees to dig nests. Another important step is using integrated pest management, a land management approach that minimizes the use of chemical pesticides, and anyone who wants to help monitor native bees can join community science projects and use phone apps to submit data. Most importantly, educating people and communities about bees and their importance to our food system can help create a more pollinator-friendly world. So I just thought that was, we've talked about many of these things, and I know they kind of frame it towards honeybees somewhat, but it affects all bees. And it's something that we talk about all the time with, if you have climate change or you're not even planting the correct provenance, sometimes you have plants blooming at the wrong time, which aren't helping bees or other pollinators when they need it, or when they're migrating, if they're showing up, like we've talked about certain plants, if you're not getting the right provenance and it's blooming 2 weeks too early, and then the pollinators that typically are there for them, they're not meeting each other. They're not working together to help each other. And it's just interesting. I don't know if I had really connected climate change affecting populations like that, but it makes total sense after.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we've known about pesticides, we've known about varroa, we've known about these other things.
Yeah, it shifts so much, and it's just it takes a long time for us to see that shift, but there's other things that are much more heavily impacted much quicker than we are.
Yeah.
So, no, that was a really interesting article.
I mean, I know we've talked about native bees for pollinating agricultural crops, and we know honeybees are used that way, but if there's a decline, that's going to affect everything.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's I don't know what the response to that would be from the general public.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's important for ground nesting bees and to have that habitat, and people freak out. Like, do you want to walk through your yard and have bees?
Yeah.
It's important. It's important to have those areas. But if you're rewilding, it seems more natural to have those areas. And I love what they highlight that you can do, because it's things that we all talk about all the time. It's not having mulch, using green ground covers or things like that to take area, and leaving your leaves and just pollinator friendly gardens, or helping out in local experiments. It's all important things. It's just one more thing that you can add to to what's already stacked up against our pollinators.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's a good article.
But they, even though it highlights everything, I didn't feel as though it was doom and gloom. I felt it was, hey, let's educate everyone, let them know this is how you can do your part, and it's just how learning more how it's going to affect everything.
Yeah, no, interesting.
What do you got?
So my article this week is basically, Fran, I hate to break it to you, but the sun does not revolve around you. It's
no.
Are you, no. It was an article. I can't remember where I saw it shared, but it was titled. Excuse me. Somehow I cut out the title?
No, it's at the page before. I have it on mine. Up until about 400 years ago, it was widely accepted. I don't know if
that's the actual title, though.
That Earth was at the center of the universe and everything revolved around it.
Maybe it is.
I think it is.
I think that's just the first. Oh no, the title is "Knowledge of Nature Challenges Human-Centric Thinking." When I put all this stuff in, I actually took that's the first line of the article.
Gotcha.
So.
All right.
This was from the David Suzuki Foundation, and then it was republished a couple other places. And David Suzuki, I wasn't familiar with him, but he's like a nature-based like filmmaker and content creator. He's an older guy. He's born in 1936. I remember seeing that. But and this was written by him with contributions from the senior editor, who was Ian Hannington. And so it starts up until about 400 years ago. It was widely accepted the Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around it. When scientist Galileo Galilei changed his geocentric view, confirming Nicholas Copernicus' heliocentric theory that planets revolved around the sun, he was charged with heresy by the Catholic Inquisition and crime punishable by death. In 1633, he was sentenced to life imprisonment by the church. And that ban was not, or the church actually didn't lift its ban on heliocentric works until 1757, long after his death. Despite the evidence, heliocentrism threatened a worldview that puts humans at the center of creation. Understanding of our place in the cosmos may have advanced considerably over the past few hundred years, but we are still largely operating from the anthropocentric or human-centered, if not geocentric mindset. That is, we see humans as the pinnacle of existence on a level well beyond that of other life. That perspective is also facing challenges in light of growing scientific evidence. In Western culture, especially plants and animals, have long been considered rudimentary life forms, incapable of advanced cognition and the communication skills of humans that give us justification to exploit nature without much thought about the consequences. But scientific research is starting to confirm that what many indigenous peoples have long known, that other life forms and perhaps even non-living things are as much our kin as they are objects to be used for our purposes. Stephen Buckman, a Polynesian ecologist and author of What a Bee Knows, exploring the thoughts, memories, and personalities of bees, has studied bees for more than 40 years. He argues that these tiny insects can demonstrate sophisticated emotions resembling optimism, frustration, playfulness, and fear, and can experience PTSD-like symptoms, recognize different human faces, process long-term memories while sleeping, and maybe even dream, The Guardian reports. Oliver Millman, former guest, and we profiled him in his book, he's a writer for The Guardian and author of The Insect Crisis, The Fall of the Tiny Empires That Run the World, says honeybees understand the concept of zero, can add and subtract numbers, and can even be trained to detect landmines more effectively than sniffer dogs. And some bumblebees can be taught to play soccer and remember good and bad experiences, suggesting they have a form of consciousness. As for crows and other corvids, research shows that they know what they know and can ponder the content of their own minds, which is a cornerstone of self-awareness and shared by just a handful of animal species besides humans, such as monkeys and great apes, a Popular Mechanics article reports. They can also use their complex brains to find creative solutions, such as dropping nuts on the road so passing cars can crack them open. We're also learning that plants have complex abilities that allow them to communicate and care for each other. Research by scientists such as Suzanne Simard at the University of British Columbia, popularized in books by Peter Wolleben and others, including Mr. Suzuki here, show that trees share nutrients through fungal networks and can warn each other of threats. New research has found that some plants emit high-pitched sounds when they experience stress from damage or dehydration. Although these are at frequencies humans can't hear, they could theoretically be detected by other animals. Although there's no evidence that the plants were making the sounds on purpose, researchers were able to distinguish between the different plants and what types of stress they were experiencing by the rate of the sounds, according to Smithsonian magazines. What much of the research shows is that we have been and still are operating at a limited understanding of nature and how it's all interconnected. We don't stand outside or above nature. We're part of it. This is what many indigenous peoples regarded nature as kin, and to which we are connected rather than resources to be exploited. We'll no doubt continue to learn more about the world around us, which will necessarily change our perspective. We rely on nature for sustenance, but even the limited knowledge of what we have shows we must fulfill our needs with greater humility and respect for all existence. I just really thought this was a one. It was short, which I appreciated. So it just, I did like that it was short. It was very succinct and to the point. It didn't get bogged down in some of these examples that they use. They reference the examples. They basically get to the gist, give you a link if you want to look up more. If you want to look up more about Oliver Millman's book or some of his other writings, you have the resources in this article to go and do that. Same with the other authors that are listed as resources. But it really demonstrated to me that we are often consumed by science, and we live in a world, and this is like, because it's a very us-based, us-centric world, we tend to look at things that way. It's hard not to look at things with your own best interest first. But as science progresses, we can become more and more cognizant that there are other things going on here. There are other things we need to consider. And that's constantly going to change. And it also makes me think again, it would be way easier to live life if I was just ignorant to all this stuff. And I didn't know it existed and didn't know it was a thing.
You know, I do like bird photography, or I'm very amateur at it. But the other day I was walking to the back section of the nursery and I could hear like birds were starting to squawk a little bit. And I did the, the Merlin ID app, and it was all red-winged blackbird. So, and then they quiet it down. And as I walked by, there was one close to me, and right as I got close to it, it squawked, and all the other ones moved to the other side of the pond. So it was like, to me, it felt obvious that they were communicating like threat on its way, you know, like move. They all moved. And I'm like, man, there's got to be some way I can communicate that I'm not a threat, whether it be like through physical gesture or like there's no way, like there's got to be a way that they understand, because some animals like aren't scared in your presence, some are, and maybe that's experience and memory, but it's, I don't know, it's, I think about this stuff all the time now.
Oh yeah, I referenced it with the tick just earlier. I'm like, I wouldn't have thought twice before reading that book, the Hal Herzog book. I wouldn't have thought twice about taking that tick, throwing it in the toilet, flushing it down the sink, taping it up, throwing it in the trash, or even clicking it with a pen like I did.
Yeah.
But after I learned, there's more to consider here, I did think about it. Yeah. And that's where I say it would be a heck of a lot easier to not think about it. But now that I know, I can't unknow it in a sense. But going back to one of the things you said that is something we've even talked about before, is some of the research that's been done on human impacts in non-consumptive outdoor experiences.
Yeah.
So that's a long way to say hiking, mountain biking, that kind of stuff, versus hunting, fishing, stuff where you're physically removing something from the woods. And outside of that, if you're hunting, your goal is to physically remove an individual from the woods, or multiple individuals from the woods, where the mountain biker does not have that goal. Yeah. Most of the process, you're still having the same impacts or more impacts. You're mountain biking through the woods. Every time you're taking turn the trail, you have birds or squirrels or crows or bears or deer that are aware of your entrance into their comfort zone and are changing their actions because of that. Yeah. In fact, you look at someone who's hunting, they're often trying to do it stealthily, and maybe they're getting past some of the awareness of some of these creatures. And you think, okay, that's not that big a deal. And I think on an individual instance, it's not that big a deal, but you figure how many people are hiking that trail or mountain biking that trail or doing whatever that trail on that day, and now disrupting that deer. It's picking its head up from eating just that one, or that, and bounding off a couple steps, not just one time, but now it's doing it tens of times or even hundreds of times, or it's going to different areas and getting kicked out of there and all around, and how much energy they need to store for over the winter that now they aren't able to do just because someone's walking through. It really makes you think. I'm not saying that we need to stop doing those things. I think it is something you need to be cognizant of as you're doing those things.
I think there's always been interaction, and not always, for the last few hundred years, and obviously that interaction changes as our population grows and we expand. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. There's like I definitely think that a lot of these plants and animals are more advanced on communication than we are sometimes. That maybe they all know how to interact together and we just don't. Mm-hmm. So just gut feeling. I don't know. That's what's in my head as I'm taking these walks now, and I'm observing, and I'm like, why do I feel like an outsider?
Yeah.
They're all working, or they're all communicating together, and I can't seem how to communicate.
You don't understand the language. Yeah. No, I think it's basically the summation of this article to me is to keep an open mind. Realize that what you know today is going to be different from what you don't know tomorrow, and what you know tomorrow may contrast with what you think you know today.
Yeah.
You're constantly trying to learn. Finding out you're wrong is one of the best things you can do in your life because it eliminated one of the options. So, and just makes you that much smarter because you know that wasn't an option like it used to be. So it's, I think this is the call to just continue diving into learning about nature and insects and plants and all that kind of stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Fantastic article. 2 great articles. On Monday, we will put the vote up, the poll, in our Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group. So make sure you go there and vote because... And of course, the choice is yours. I am thinking... Oh, let's see. What you want to do? Listener shout-outs?
Yes. Yeah.
Listener shout-out.
What do you have this week?
I have a whole bunch. So why don't you go first? Because your list is much shorter than mine.
You know, I have one, and it's really meant as a gesture of gratitude, and that's towards Melinda Soltis, who was the guest for the trials and tribulations of living in or rewilding in a HOA. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and spending time with us, because I know it wasn't an easy conversation to have, and it's not an easy story to tell, but it's an important journey that I think a lot of our listeners are experiencing as well and had questions. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate putting yourself out there, having that conversation with us. People are responding that this really resonates with them, and just by the listens, it's resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah,
because it may end up being our most listened to episode in the first 7 days. I think I have to look, but it may be there or really close.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's very close if it hasn't passed it by now.
Yeah,
but no, that was an awesome conversation. Glad to have it. Glad to get some of my feelings on politicians out there. That was nice. It was freeing in a sense. As I've just come off a Zoom meeting about invasive plant legislation in New Jersey, and I'm sitting on like our county board of agriculture, and I'm involved with Farm Bureau, but
I've actually gone back and listened to it. Like this week, as I caught up on my other podcasts, I kind of put it on and been listening to it to and from work. And Melinda, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I reached out via message the other day just to say thank you, but I know our listeners appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. What do you got?
Yeah, so we had an updated 5-star review. Oh, and that was from CJB in AL, which they wrote the review saying that they didn't want to like us at first, but then they did. Or they were skeptical, I should say. I shouldn't say they didn't want to like us. But they really enjoyed the Grow, Read a Book segments, and so which means I need to find more time to read and listen to audiobooks, which reminds me, I have another one that I borrowed, and I forgot I borrowed it. I got 2 days before I have to return it, so I got to
listen to it so we can do the next buzz.
I do most of my stuff. Some of my reading, but most of my audiobooks I do on the Libby app, which is all our Burlington County libraries are affiliated. I know there's other people I've talked to in Michigan and other parts of the country that use the same app, but that's a great way to utilize your public libraries and then get a book, and then suggest what books you're interested in too. They just had an update, so now I can click like a notify me if the book they don't have.
Oh, okay.
I can click notify me for when they get the license, and I'm sure on their end they see, oh, there's people who are interested in this book. Maybe we should get a license. So
I have tried on numerous occasions to do audiobooks, and it tends to be while I'm driving, and I don't have the attention span. I find myself, I didn't listen for the last 10 minutes, or I hear something and then I ponder it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I got to go back. And it ends up becoming such a long drawn out process for me that it kind of ruins the enjoyment of it.
Yep.
And that's reading for me in general. That's kind of how I read. That's how I read.
Yep. So some of the other ones I had is we got a bunch of Instagram messages over the last week and a half. So I wanted to highlight some of those. One was from Annika, who sent an article that I didn't use. I'm keeping that one in my back pocket. and I think I might use that one next time. Also got a message from Preston Drum, who had a lot of like suggestions, really good things we've talked about actually, and just different things that we can try out, or different guests he might be interested in, that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
And then another one from Whitney Troy, and I wrote down your name, but I forgot what you asked about or what you wrote in with. But and then also had a LinkedIn message from a fella named Steve Hood. And then we actually scheduled a call because some of the stuff he was writing to me about sounded really interesting. And I had a Zoom call with him. He's starting a enterprise called Kudzu Solutions, which is an ecology technology company. And their mission is to connect gardeners with horticultural industry and plants and ecological science. The app, what they were talking about and what he showed me was really pretty interesting. Like the concept would be, if you're a gardener here in New Jersey, and you're saying, I have this kind of condition in my yard, you could plug it in. Not only would it suggest what you might want to plant there, or what you're like, if you put in your goals, I want to have a butterfly garden, it might not just going to suggest, oh, maybe you want to try like Asclepias incarnata, which is swamp milkweed. It'll also connect you with where you can get that in your area.
Awesome.
And then with preference, so you might be able to get it at Home Depot. I'm not sure if you can, but you might be able to get it at Home Depot, but they can't verify where those plants came from, and they might look at like I'm thinking of Toadshade Nursery or Toadshade Wildflower Farm, where, man, they're going out and collecting a lot of the seed responsibly from wild sources. They're going to have a local ecotype to you. They're doing it more in an ecologically acceptable way. Or ecologically focused way. So they would probably be at the top of the list and say, oh, if you're looking for that plant, look here first. And then here's some other places you can get it. It might be a little bit closer to you, or it might be a little bit easier for you to get to. But if you want to get the ecologically focused one, this is where you go.
Oh, that's
so
pretty
just
cool.
A really, really cool
it's a good concept. Yeah.
They're looking for beta testers as they launch this program, and you can kind of stay in the loop if you're interested in beta testing this. Their page is Steve's Gardens by Kudzu Solutions, and that's on Facebook.
And I'll put wrote down to put the link in the show notes.
If you go to I have a link for the show notes. If you go to that link, it'll take you to the Facebook page. I guess join that Facebook page or like that Facebook page, and then when they start to roll this stuff out, you'll get notified and be able to raise your hand and say, pick me for the beta testing stuff. So, but no, it's a really cool idea to connect people who may be interested in this but can't find the stuff. So they're putting that network together.
Very cool. Awesome. So no questions this week, but we do have a comment on the question and comment line.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. And I want to have them answered immediately.
It's a simple question.
No, I didn't hear you. What was your question?
All right. I've listened to this. You haven't heard it yet.
No, I haven't heard it.
I think you'll appreciate this one.
Hey, Fran and Tom. This is Carrie Lloyd of Hopewell, New Jersey. I absolutely love your show. I love that you guys I'm listening right now to The Buzz, The Dilemmas Within. I love that you guys are bringing out the discussion about vegetarianism and, conflicts about, how somebody could be watching a cockfight and talking about how horrible it is while eating a chicken. That's something I think about all the time. But you guys are talking about, the blood that you spill, you're it could be, even if you're eating vegetables or if you're eating meat, just please do remember that in factory farming, they create an enormous amount of pollution, and they are also feeding, corn, monoculture corn to that cattle. And, although I think it's great when people do, have regenerative farming practices, the majority of the meat that people are eating is absolutely not. They're pumping that water in. It's not coming from the rain. I just please remember that if you make another episode. But thank you. I'm very grateful for you bringing up this topic. It's something we all need to think about. I love your show. Have a great day. Bye.
Fran, I kind of think that was unfair. You didn't play that for me first. But it is what we basically said in the beginning.
Yeah.
So.
No, I knew I gave you the gist of it.
Yeah.
So, but there's so much to consider, and I thought we were I didn't realize we would go in depth early in the show. I thought we would go in depth like now? More as now like more as a follow up, but it's so many great things to think about, and it's hard to think about all of them. Like it's. Every time you do anything, you're making a choice, and it's how much you want to dive in. And some people live their lives by those choices. Like if you're vegan and you're looking at certain aspects of certain food practices, and then you have people going strictly organic farming or regenerative farming. It's a lot to process and work out and figure out which path you want to follow. And and there's a million different answers,
I think you could give that problem to 100 people, and I don't know if you have 100 different answers, but you'd have at least 10.
Yeah,
you would have a lot of different routes where people could take, and this is what happens every day. People are taking the same information and having sometimes wildly different outcomes or plans of action off of that. But yeah, like I was saying, I agree with the factory farming perspective. I agree with a lot of that. Is how our agricultural process works today is basically getting, and again, you also have to back up. But
listen, let me say, I've seen those tractor trailers of chicken cages going down the road in the eastern shore of Maryland, where they're being processed, and I've seen. I don't even know if we've ever had this conversation where they would sell the blood as a fertilizer that they would inject through plant nursery irrigation water.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's this is going back to the 90s, but I remember going by a nursery that was in that area because I was working for a nursery that had a location in that area, and I was asking what was wrong with the irrigation water. Yeah. Or not at the nursery I worked at, but another nursery.
That's fascinating because that's like... maybe this is a different opinion, but I think that's actually a good thing. In a sense,
it's an interesting
because
way
now you get to that product isn't just going away or going to waste; it's being used for something.
It's being used to grow life in another root.
Yeah, but it's we have our food system right now is basically getting food to market as fast as possible. And then also having the longest shelf life possible. And that's, now we're looking at it from that ecological lens, and we're like, that's not really the best thing, but it's a product of really World War II when we're going into the Cold War, and it's like, we need to have a resilient food system in case there's a nuclear war, and people can go underground and be able to live because you aren't going to have land that you can farm on. You're not going to have any, we need to have as basically food security.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we just did that out for no reason. It was really because we needed to do it because we're at threat of World War III. Not that we aren't now too, but it was, tensions were very high then, and that was why we took those routes.
It's an interesting part. The Eastern Shore is very interesting in some of their practices too. Like for nurseries, you see a lot of stoned. Like our roadways are stoned or under the houses. That part of the country, they use ground clam shells instead of stone as a byproduct from the fisheries in that area. It's interesting to see how some of that stuff gets reused and repurposed. Just in I've only ever really seen it in that part of the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting.
And it's talking about regenerative ag. It's it just seems to go a lot of it seems to go hand in hand with utilizing more. Another issue I have with our food system is we have romanticized cuts. So it's everyone, you go to the steakhouse, everyone wants a filet mignon. Even you go to the grocery store, you're looking for ribeyes, filet mignons, strip steaks. It's all the choice cuts.
Yeah.
Which even historically were not the prized cuts. They were, how many times are you going to the store and finding like beef liver or kidneys or that kind of stuff? And a lot of that stuff is then used for, it doesn't get necessarily discarded. I'm sure a lot of it does, but it's used in other means that might not be the most safer when it could be easily consumed, and it's actually very nutritional for you.
Well, I've had this conversation with you, with my wife, saying growing up in Poland, like you didn't waste anything. When you slaughtered a pig, like, and that's what we talked about, head cheese. And she was like, that's a delicacy, even though it's used, I think it's tongue, and they found a way to use the leftover parts in a palatable way that so nothing would ever go to waste because it was limited. It wasn't, let's just kill to kill, and we're just going to have the pork and the bacon and the ham. It was everything got used.
Oh, yeah. And that's still how it should be. Yeah. But it's just that speed to market, like designer cuts in a sense, have just kind of taken over, and everyone wants the best. You don't want what is not considered the best, which is sometimes better for you.
Now, when I was a kid, liver was a much more utilized meal, but as that for people that didn't like it and got older, like, have you heard of anyone eating liver like recently?
I'm not necessarily going and eating it, other than older folks.
I've never seen it on a menu. Have you?
I have, but I can't remember where. It's a funny story about that is my wife and I had gone to a little European tour, and we were in Paris, and we went to a restaurant, and she ordered what she thought was veal, but turned out it was veal liver.
Oh,
and honestly, it was incredible. It was
really
so good. Wow. And this was like a famous French restaurant. It was so good. It was like really amazing. Yeah. And she was like a little upset that that's what she got when it was handed to her. And then after she ate it, she's like, it was so good, but it was still like a little weird, just because mentally it was weird, because she hadn't really eaten that before. But I can't say, it's not like you're not going to McDonald's and seeing it on the menu.
No,
you're not even going to most diners and seeing it on the menu.
No,
I think
it's not something. So what's happening to that? How is it getting used?
Yeah,
is it getting used?
I'm assuming they aren't just throwing it out.
I'm assuming that too.
It's becoming a byproduct, and it's either fed to other livestock or it's used in some other industry. Yeah. I'm going to say.
All right, take a quick look. And then from there, we'll go into take it or leave it. Let's see.
I know a lot of that stuff has become more popular now too. What happens to the less popular cuts of meat? Oh, yeah. Well, this makes sense. Like right. I was saying, something else is eating dog food.
Okay.
A lot of it's going into dog food, and pet treats and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, and that makes sense.
Like I know there's a little there's a meat store not too far from us.
Yeah,
and you go in there and they have a lot of those kind of cuts because they do a lot of their own butchering there. But it's like I remember walking down the aisle and seeing like the refrigerated case, and I'm like, huh. What's beef pizzle?
Oh, yeah, I know what that is.
And then, it's something else that starts with a P.
Yeah. It's kind of like when I found out what bully sticks were for dog treats.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And then they told me, I was like, oh.
So, a lot of that stuff is used for animal treats, pet food. But then some cultures still eat it, so it's still somewhat available. But you're not going into the grocery store, like a ShopRite or an Acme or those are regional ones. I guess I should say Kroger.
I have seen... in a ShopRite, chicken claws.
Okay, yeah.
But only in one. It's south of us. It's where my father-in-law lives.
You used to get like chicken livers at the grocery store. Yeah. I think you still do that.
But that was interesting to see packaged chicken feet.
Yeah.
Like I had never seen that in a ShopRite.
Have you ever eaten a chicken foot?
No.
I had one in China.
How was it? Tastes like chicken?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But it wasn't like it was, I don't know. It was more of like a weird thing.
Is it more work? Is it just, it tastes the same, but it's just more work to get at it?
Yeah, it's very like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's also been like 15 years, but yeah.
Has it been that long? Wow. Because I remember when you went, I didn't realize it was that long.
12 years. It was 2011.
Wow.
So, yeah. No, It's hard to describe.
All right.
But okay, I'm going to ShopRite. I'm going to get some chicken feet. I'll tell you.
That was that was down in, like I said, where my father-in-law lives, and it's a different culture there, and you see completely different things in the ShopRite there than you would see in all the other ShopRites.
There was a really cool Meat Eater episode within the last, it was probably January, February, and a lot of it was about organ and how USDA looks at organs.
Okay.
And haggis is the one that's like lung, right?
And
you can't get real haggis
here
because of respiratory things. And he's kind of explaining, the guest is explaining some of the reasoning behind it, whether it is good reasoning or bad reasoning too. So anyway, we're getting way off topic.
Let's do all right. Let's do take it or leave it.
I will say, I appreciate the call. I think, I'm glad we're thinking outside the box.
And like we said when we started, it was, we were afraid that maybe it would be perceived as too controversial, but I think hopefully we presented it in a way that was thoughtful.
Yeah, read the book.
Yeah,
or listen to the book like I did, because it's at the very least it's going to make you think. You may disagree with a lot of what they write, but it really doesn't give opinions. It does sometimes, but most of it is just like, why is this okay, but this isn't? Yeah. Why is this okay, but this isn't? But this is okay in Korean culture, and then what we do is not.
Just because there's no answer. There's no one answer.
Exactly.
But so take it or leave it. We've talked about, I don't know if you looked at this, but this is something that Christiane, who's our producer for A Native Plant Every Day, kind of brought up because I was struggling to find a take it or leave it. She brought up rehoming your leaves. So we always talk about just leaving your leaves, and she was mentioning the practice where you don't necessarily dispose of your leaves, and you don't necessarily leave them. You rehome them to repurpose them in other areas. Are you familiar with the process? Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it's better than getting them shredded or sent to the I don't even know where they bring the leaves when they pick them up. I know our township will go and pick up leaves, but I don't know what they do.
Do they grind them?
I'm assuming there is a composting place that's at our local landfill. Center, so I'm going to assume that they're probably ground up and then used in the compost facility. Okay. But I don't know.
I'm okay with rehoming. Technically, if you're putting the leaves in your garden, you're rehoming. Yeah. Or using them as a mulch, you're rehoming. I like the idea of trying to keep them close, to that area. Like there's certain types of woods which support certain types of organisms. Yeah. If you're in an oak forest, it's supporting things that can live in an oak forest. So, yeah. I'm okay with it. I am okay. I agree it's better than the alternative of removing them. I don't like the disturbance of it, but I agree. I think it's a good compromise, and there's a lot of good that comes of it. Yeah. I would like to know some of the negatives. Like I wonder what would be considered a negative of rehoming your leaves. I'm going to look it up.
That other than one of the negatives is you're not leaving the leaves.
Yeah.
But no, I like I said, they're going to move around most places anyway because of the wind.
Yeah. When I do rehoming leaves, everything's about rehoming pets.
Okay.
Nothing's coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I put leaves, but it just wants to show me pets. So I don't really see, like, if you're disturbing or if you're rehoming them too far, to different areas, I could see that being an issue because maybe you're not supporting the organisms that you would support aren't there to take, or the bacteria. But all right, I think that's been a good episode. I didn't think we'd go this long, but we're actually probably an hour and 20 minutes.
No, that's cool. That's cool. It was a good episode, a lot of fun, a little break from the phone calls and emails and
I needed that break.
Meetings and all that kind of stuff. So, no, that was
all the fun stuff that goes on in the nursery industry in the spring.
So, yeah, Brad Leone, if you're listening to this, you're always welcome on as a guest. I said it was our first Blue Check listener, but I don't know if it actually is because I started thinking, I'm like, there are some other people who follow us who have some big followings. He's just the first one I've noticed. That was
that one resonated.
Yeah,
with
I'm gonna have to go and take a little look through.
Well, maybe we've been talking about a.
I was like, the first one I see is a blue. Oh no, it's him again. That's why.
We keep talking about wanting to have a rooted discussion about cooking with natives.
Yeah, and he was one of the first people I reached out to.
Yeah,
and then never wrote back to me. So maybe I have an in.
Maybe that's
because I have some other people that I think would be good fits. It was just getting them all together.
Would you include Sam Thayer in that one?
We could.
Okay,
but I was looking to expand the net a little bit.
Okay,
there was another guy who lives near Sam Thayer and works with Sam Thayer, who's like a professional chef, and he was on a TV show with Sam Thayer.
Oh yeah.
So he was one of them, and then Alyssa Lewis, and then my cousin referred someone in Connecticut.
I
forget his full name. Yeah,
okay.
But that guy.
Yeah.
So there was a couple times we got close, and I'm like, hey, I think we can do it. Let's pick a date, and then it just kind of fell apart. So yeah, I still want to do that. Get Brad Leone on, and
right.
And then do our whole thing, and we'll be in good shape.
All right.
So
awesome.
All right, well, that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed listening to The Buzz. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Native Plants, Healthy Planet, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
Thanks. Since we're giving thanks, thank you, RJ Comer, for our Buzz theme music. Make sure you stream or buy RJ's music wherever you consume your music. Check out his Americana playlist on Pandora. You'll be happy that you did. Follow us at Twitter on Twitter at Pineland Nursery, Facebook at Pinelands Nursery NJ, Instagram at Native Plants _Healthy Planet or at Pinelands Nursery, and YouTube at Pinelands Nursery. We now have a question and comment line. You can call us at 215-346-6189. I will repeat that, 215-346-6189. Ask a question or leave a comment, and we'll do our best to play it on a future episode of The Buzz. And the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group, I love that it's kind of, there's an influx of new members, and the conversations seem reinvigorated, and we're not even really that much of a part of it anymore. It's become a community. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like we're the facilitators any longer. It's kind of taken over itself, and it makes me very happy every time I look through or make a comment of what's going on there.
Yeah, definitely. So you can buy Native Plants Healthy Planet merch at our website, www.nativeplantshealthyplanet.com. There's a link at the top. It takes you to our store, and then you can find lots of different things. T-shirts, phone cases. Russ Fenari just showed us his phone case is still holding up.
Yeah, it looks good.
So it looks good. It's a little worn on the back where I guess he holds it, but he also got a comment from someone at the conference. We didn't even follow up about the SAME conference.
No, we didn't.
Oh, man. That was a good conference.
It was a very good
conference. Maybe we'll talk about it next time.
You know what? I'm going to add that in the notes. So it was Society of American
Military Engineers. But he had his phone case on the back says Plant Native Plants, and whoever he was eating lunch with asked about the phone case. Or asked about the message, and then he was telling us about it.
He was sitting right behind us, kind of tapped us on the shoulder, so...
Yeah, so you can find all sorts of stuff there, and we don't keep any of the profits from that. We take them, give it to people who we feel are doing the right thing when it comes to native plants. So you can listen to Native Plants Healthy Planet on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and really wherever you consume your podcast. I haven't found a place where you can't.
I agree.
Except maybe the radio. I don't think we're on the...
No.
Maybe if you hit up one of those weird AM stations, they're pirating it.
That would be... You know what? I'd be okay with that. That would be kind of cool.
But if you can, when you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, really wherever, you can leave a review. If you do leave a 5-star review, that goes a long way into promoting the message of native plants and getting it in front of more eyeballs and ear holes, and just getting more people invigorated about conversations around native plants. So if you do a little write-up or amend your write-up with that 5-star review, I give you a shout-out on our Buzz episodes and have a little fun with it. So
yeah. I think at some point we have to revisit the idea of doing a live, I don't know, a live podcast or just like a live Facebook thing where people can ask us questions.
Yeah. I still want to do it. It's hard finding the time to do it.
It is. But you made me think of like I'm like, it'd be kind of cool if someone offered us like a 1 hour radio show once a week and we could take calls and just do that. And I'm like, where are you going to find the time for that? But we could do it on Facebook.
What I would love
to
do is just like a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live. I was also told there's no way to feel worse about yourself than doing a Facebook Live because you really see how many people show up. And it's like, what if we did it and only like 2 people joined? It'll be Russ Finari and Alyssa Lewis.
It would be fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun.
So
I agree. But, any secrets? Do you have any secrets?
Oh, I'm sure I have a whole bunch. It's what I want to share. Let's see. Oh, I say it in the next episode, but I'll use it as a secret now. But my wife and I went to a concert in Philly last Friday. Went to a restaurant, really like good pizza place, like high-end pizza place in ranked like in the top ones in the country at some point.
It's in Philadelphia, but it gets ranked. I've seen it ranked in the top 5 in the country on a few times. Yeah.
If you Google it, you'll figure out what I'm talking about. I don't want to attach a name. But Ramps on Pizza, awesome idea.
Yeah.
$8 for Ramps on Pizza. I don't know if I want to promote the harvesting of ramps from culinary locations. So
yeah,
but no, I think it's cool.
Was it worth it? Like,
we didn't get them.
Oh, you didn't get?
No.
Oh, wow.
You know my wife. Are we going to pay for $8 for ramps on her pizza? It was already a $28 pizza.
Yeah,
but it did have shiitake mushrooms and all kinds of stuff on there. I'm trying to remember. Red onion. It was
Would you put
phenomenal.
Would you put that pizza in your top 5?
Oh man,
because this top 5 in the country just gets picked. We're in a good pizza area.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we
haven't talked about it in a long time. But are you putting that in your top 5?
It's probably close. If it's not, it's definitely top 10. But I would say it's top 7. I would say yes.
Okay.
Top 5, I would have to go down the list. I'd have to refresh my memory on and all this stuff and say, is it actually in there? So,
those lists are so subjective because I've seen there's a place that Tom and I both like in South Jersey that someone showed it was in like a top 20 in the world.
Yeah.
And that caused a lot of arguments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because there's that's not even the best pizza place in that town. And it is like there's a strip. There's 3 fantastic pizza places right, within 2 blocks of each other.
Yeah. But no, it was cool to see a native plant on like a big time restaurant menu.
Yeah.
That being said, like I just had seen the Black Forager had put up a thing saying like, stop telling people to watch how many ramps they collect. That's not why we're losing ramps. It's because you have restaurants that are paying a lot of money for people to go out and collect as many as they can in an unsustainable fashion. Yeah. You go into the woods and taking enough ramps for your family to have a meal or 2 is not what's hurting things.
Yeah.
It's these restaurants going and selling $8 ramps to who knows how many people every night for a month straight.
Yeah.
That's where all the ramps are going.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, we talked about it on the next episode, too. Yeah. I was talking about in West Virginia, they're doing the Ramperoni, which is a ramp and pepperoni stuffed donut in West Virginia, and they only do it certain times of the year. Sounds delicious. I want it.
Yeah.
But how many
how many ramps are they using to make that and pulling out of the wild, and then are they collecting it sustainably? Are they
that I don't know.
And sustainable collection is always a funny thing to me, too. Maybe we leave that for take it or leave it. But sustainable, because it's like you don't know who was there before you. Like with morel mushrooms, there's another one. Yeah. I hear the argument all the time where it's like people walk in, okay, I'm approaching a patch of morel mushrooms and I see there's 20 of them there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to collect sustainably. I'm going to take 5.
Yeah.
Well, then an hour later, someone walks in and sees a patch of morel mushrooms and there's 15, so they take 3. And
yeah.
It's like, now all of a sudden you have one guy and there's one left, and he's like, well, it's the only one I found all day. And he takes it. So even though I collected sustainably and the person after me collected sustainably, we all collected sustainably, the whole patch ends up going because we're only there for that little instant and see what we see. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right, we'll say I'm writing that down for the next buzz too.
Yep.
So keeping some
that'll
notes,
be my question to you.
All right. Awesome. Got it. I'll add that in.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I am Fran. Thanks again, everyone. Coming up next week, we have a very special rooted discussion that we kind of teased about the American chestnut. And we're really excited to release this one into the podcast world. So make sure you tune in next week for that one. And until then, keep it native.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.